Hey everybody, today I'm going to be talking about the novel The 12. The 12 was written by Justin Cronin. It was released in October of 2012, so it's a pretty recent book. It is actually the sequel to Cronin's novel The Passage, which was published back in June of 2010. So we've waited a little over 2 years for this novel to come out. So if you haven't read The Passage, stop this video, forget it, go and read the passage, and then come back. Come back. It's okay. I'll still be here. I'll be here. It's go. It's okay. Okay. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, if you're here, I'm assuming you've read the passage. So probably your question is, what's up with this novel? Is it as good as the passage? Is it better than the passage? What's the story? So, in the 12, we have the continuation of the story of the world after the vampire apocalypse. So, it's a dystopian type novel set in this post-apocalyptic world where the human race is scattered among small settlements. So, the 12 continues the story of the world after the vampire apocalypse. Now, just like the passage, a good, probably first third of the novel is actually dedicated to an earlier point of time than where we ended off with in the passage. So in the passage, we ended about 90 some odd years after the vampires. And in this book, we start basically in the first year that the vampire apocalypse has happened. Okay? So we actually see some of the survivors of that initial wave of assault. And I have to say, like, even though this particular part of the story, like a lot of it was just setting up one or two things for later on, I actually found this part really compelling. There was a couple of really good characters and a couple of moments that I kind of got really emotionally invested in. And I don't really want to go too far into it because I don't want to spoil anything. But this first third of the book I really enjoyed. And then after that, we basically go back to our main characters where we left in the passage with Peter, Alicia, Amy, and all of their sort of collective group that came out of California. But we've moved ahead now about 5 years from where we left off in the passage. So there has been time sort of shifting as we go along. So the part that follows Peter, which is the direct sequel to the events in the passage, is actually set 5 years after the end of the passage. And this book, let's just get right down to it. I actually enjoyed this book better than the passage. I thought that the pacing was a lot better. I found that the language usage was not quite as, how to put it, flowery. In the passage, I felt that sometimes the language being used kind of overburdened the reading experience. Don't really find that here so much. The descriptions are succinct, they make sense, even though they are a bit more evocative than your really blunt-headed horror type novel, let's say, they are still very serviceable. Like they're you don't get bogged down in the description of things. It actually does help to paint the picture and build that image in your head. And so I would have to say that the 12 is a pretty big improvement over the passage. Yes, I mean, it's still the same sort of idea. You're still in that same world. But as I said, it's almost like Cronin's kind of embraced it a bit more and dived in a little bit further to it and let himself be consumed by this story that he's writing. Now, I mean, there's been a few people that pick points with it. In particular, one of the complaints that I saw was about character development. Yeah, I gotta say, like, there's not a lot of character development. Like, we pretty much pick up with the characters where they were at the end of the passage, and they pretty much just carry through and deliver how they're going to deliver for the rest of the book. But does that mean that the story isn't compelling? Does it mean that it's not worth reading? I would say not. it's still a really interesting world. It's a fairly well realized world. A lot of people have compared it to Stephen King's The Stand. I confess, with a great deal of guilt, I have not read The Stand, so I am not one to judge. However, based on what I know of The Stand and based on that I saw the 80s miniseries, which I know is not a great comparison, but still, it gives me a rough idea. I can see where the comparison is. So, if you like post-apocalyptic type stories, if you like your vampires actually ripping people apart instead of sparkling and falling in love with them, then really The Passage and The 12 are two really good books. As I said, The Passage can feel a little bit bloated at times, but The 12, the pacing really does pick up. And there's a couple of really cool ideas that are put into The 12 that I really enjoyed, and they're sort of a play on things that we saw in The Passage. So in The Passage, of course, we saw people willingly sacrificing people in order to remain in peace. We kind of see a different side of that in The 12, and it's really, really interesting, and I like some of the commentary that it's made on human beings and what we do to get ourselves to survive. To sum it up, The 12, it's got really good pacing. The new characters that were introduced in the beginning of the book, I actually really enjoyed them. While the majority of characters that we meet or, re-meet later on don't have a huge amount of character development, there are some really good character moments, and the few characters who do kind of grow and change and advance have a great arc, and I really did enjoy that. So I'm actually really looking forward now to seeing how this all gets tied up in the third and I'm assuming final novel. So once again, guys, The Passage is a good book. The 12 is better. If you got through The Passage and you were kind of iffy on this one, I say give it a shot. If you loved The Passage, then there is no reason that you can't love The 12 as well. It's a really, really worthy successor, and as I said, I think it's actually an improvement. So there you go, guys. That's my review of The 12 by Justin Cronin. I hope you read the book, and I hope that you enjoy it. And my next review is going to be on the book The Maze Runner. So I'll see you then. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.